Hello everyone, it's me, Noble Comics, and today let's talk costumes. What makes a good one, what makes a bad one, and who among our caped crusaders can claim to have the best? Today we'll be analyzing perhaps the most iconic costume in comics, and that is Mr. Peter Parker, the amazing, the spectacular, the web-slinging, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man himself. Um, I know there are about a million other Spider Man variants and suits out there. Today we are exclusively talking about and reviewing the classic Spider Man suit. So let's get started with what's good. The overall costume has a unique sweet spot of being both complex and simple in its design. Spider Man has no flair or accents, he has no weapons, belts, or pouches, or even a cape. The whole costume is skin tight and really consists of only two colors. I mean, four, including black and white if you count the eyes. And the color pattern's pretty standard. There's nothing really hard to remember or jarring whenever you see it. Um, and this really allows the artist to flex and show off Spider-Man's musculature more, especially it's usually a pretty wiry frame, pure muscle, and you really get to see that with his character a lot because the costume has very little restrictions or anything covering up his muscles. On the other hand, the costume is incredibly detailed, covered in detail. The webbing pattern across all of the red sections of the costume is genius to the nature of the character, Spider Man, while not being unnecessarily cluttered. I think a good comparison would be the new 52 DC hero redesigns, where all the main heroes got new suits, which were just the old suits, but they had like random lines all over their costumes for detail, I guess, but really served no purpose but to fill in space on the suit and break up the solid colors. The webbing here serves the same purpose, but actually adds to the character and his identity. So it's a great design, both visually and to the actual nature of the character. The logo is also great. It's a simple spider on the front and this wide, almost bedbug looking spider on the back. But it is simple, it's unique, and it serves the character's identity well. Also, a symbol is always preferable to a letter when it comes to hero symbols. It's way more marketable, way more unique than if there was just like an S on his chest or something like that. So, another good thing for that costume. Let's see here. The mask also serves a good purpose to the character, hiding Peter Parker's identity, but more so hiding how young he is, how scared he might be in battle. He is just a kid after all. But the most important part of this mask, well, that is important. The most important part is going to be the eyes. The eyes are a great, hugely iconic piece of the suit that makes it all work. With the mask covering his whole face, Spider-Man needs to find a way to still be expressive, and the eyes are the perfect tool to do that. The large, over-the-top design allows the sarcastic, cocky, funny nature of Spider-Man to be expressed, while also allowing him to get serious and still having that whole head-to-toe covering that he has. Um, but it's not all good. Let's talk about some of the bad. And I will say that with Spider Man, there's not a ton that's terrible. Obviously, it's a great suit, but let's talk about some of the less good things about it. First, the sleek, slender nature of the costume makes drawing the character easier, at least for non artists like me, but it doesn't pass the silhouette test, not on its own, anyways. If we just look at a silhouette of Spider Man in costume, it just kind of looks like a bald guy, you know? Maybe a naked bald guy. There's nothing there that stands out or grabs your attention. But I can already hear you. Tanner, you say. Spider Man is extremely recognizable as a silhouette. Just look at all these poses he does. No one else looks like that. True, the nature of the character does help this issue. He's so agile and over the top with his poses and movement. but it's making up for a weakness in the costume. I know that these two things, character and costume, can't be separated, but I do think that it's a point worth mentioning, that it is making up for a weakness, though they do go together well. More on this point is that the costume and look of Spider-Man can often be misleading, like some of these images I have on here. At least in my opinion, which again may be the point. Spider-Man on his own can look pretty intimidating, like I said, especially with the heavy musculature, the big eyes if they're narrowed at you. He can look like a pretty scary character, but when the character is actually interacting on the page, he's pretty goofy more often than not. And again, you could argue this is actually a positive trait of kind of appearing to be more of a threatening hero than he actually is, and you could say that it's intentional, but I think it is something, however minor, that I think doesn't speak to the heart of the character. Obviously, it's not a huge issue, but there aren't really any huge issues with the costume, but I did think it was worth mentioning. Another thing, I think purely on an objective level, is the costume colors. Like, what the hell does red and blue have to do with being a Spider-Man? Where did that come from? It serves the purpose of grabbing your attention and looking interesting. Like I said, probably the most iconic costume in comics. That may not be the way he was colored, and him being so iconic may not have been that way if he was colored black or brown like an actual spider. And it does match the nature of the character. More bright, not these dark colors. But seriously, where it seems like a weird choice. They're going with like red and blue for a Spider-Man. I think it's a weird coloring choice, but again, minor complaint. Obviously today it works extremely well, extremely marketable. But I think from an objective standpoint, that's weird. So, overall, the design is simple, but effective. It's different from everyone else and has been pretty much unchanged since the 60s for a reason. He's got a great look that complements his character, and vice versa, but that may be all it is. Great. At the end of the day, I admire it and wish I could come up with something. I wish I could come up with something that cool, having a design this good myself. But am I blown away by it? Not really. So that said, out of my 1 to 10 rating, I would probably give Spider-Man's suit an 8. It is great. Not amazing, not perfect, but I do think it is great.
Was I good?
Good. You were great. You
said great.
Thank you all for watching. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, and tell me some comic characters who you think need a costume review. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.